In this video, I'm going to show you how to scale your traffic and your sales using my ORCA Traffic Strategy, even if you're starting at zero. So if your business is at zero, you're starting with nothing, or you're at 100,000 per year, 100,000 per month, 100,000 per day, wherever you're at in your business, I'm going to show you how to apply the ORCA Traffic Strategy that I developed a few years back to help overcome this really gnarly issue of business owner trying to figure out what traffic source strategy platform they should use. And you're going to understand how to apply this strategy in your business to drive more traffic, to drive more sales, and to scale with predictability no matter what stage you're in. Because if you're in that stage of 100,000 per year or less, you need to get attention on your offers. You need to drive traffic. You need to drive leads. You need to drive sales, right? You need to push people through your sales process. And the reason that I developed the ORCA Traffic Strategy is because one of the biggest issues that I see, one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen entrepreneurs make, and keep in mind, I ran an ad agency for 12 years. I was an ad guy, right? I ran an ad agency for 12 years. I've spent tens of millions of dollars on ad spend. And in most cases, most of the people that came to our agency and said, hey, we want to run ads and we want to scale, 70, 80% of them I turned down because they weren't ready to scale. They were not using the right traffic strategy for where they were at. They were not consistent. You have to have consistency before you can have scale. And I saw this over and over for years, right? The big problem of why this needs to exist and why this is important to you is most entrepreneurs decide how to drive traffic to their business in one of two ways. The two most common ways somebody decides. One, they look at a similar business, right? Or a contemporary business, a business that's the same business, same industry, maybe like an adjacent industry, right? People who work with this business would also work with your business. So they look at these competitors or contemporaries and they say, hey, so-and-so or this company is using YouTube organic, or so-and-so at this company is using Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever that is, right? And they're like, because they're using it and they seem to be successful, we should probably use it also. And a lot of the gurus, a lot of the people out there have basically encouraged this behavior. They've encouraged entrepreneurs to go out and say, hey, just look at what your competitors are doing and copy that. And there's so many problems with doing that because where they're at in their business may be completely different than where you're at. And what's working for them, even if they're in the same business, same industry, same location, may not work for you simply because that may only be working because of the amount of traffic that they're putting through it, because of the amount of budget that they have. Maybe they've been at this longer. Maybe they've got a better customer base. They're just more profitable, making more money than you are. And the traffic strategy that they're using, so like the whole funnel hacking thing, right? When you let's look at how these companies are driving traffic. And you're like, okay, great. I found the biggest company and I see how they're driving traffic. Well, they may have a budget where they're spending hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars per day, and they've built up to that point. You shouldn't be looking at what they're doing right now. You should be trying to identify what stage your business is in. Now, I'm going to show you a way more simple way to do this so that you don't have to try to figure out what stage they're in and look in the past and try to. So that's the first way that people decide which traffic strategies they're going to use for their business, and just a few of the reasons why you don't want to do that. The other way that people decide is get a course. You may watch a YouTube video, you may go to a conference or attend a webinar or something like that. And let's just say conference. This is one that I see is really common just because, you're going there, you're in a different environment. You've got this shift going on of like being more open to things because you're outside of your normal environment. So you're at this conference, you're on this webinar, whatever it is, and you're watching this guy teach you. And he's like, I run the largest Facebook ad agency or the largest YouTube ad agency. And here's the 256,000 reasons that you should be using, YouTube ads, reason one, right? Now, that may be the case, right? It may be that you should be using YouTube ads or YouTube organic content or Twitter threads or X threads, whatever they're called, right? Instagram, that may be the case. But keep in mind that the person who is giving you the advice, if the person who's giving you the advice is selling that thing, right? If they're like, hey, I sell Facebook ads, and they're giving you advice on why you should use Facebook ads, they don't exactly have what do they call it? A neutral bias, right? Toward you using Facebook ads. If you go to them and say, hey, should my business be using Facebook ads, and they sell Facebook advertising services, they're probably going to tell you yes. Now, like I said, when we ran our agency, we turned away more people. Our agency specialized in scaling ads profitably, and we were platform agnostic. Now, most of our ad spend was on the Facebook ad platform, and that was simply because that was just what was working best and the most popular at the time. But if Facebook was not around, like before that, we were more heavily dependent on Google when that was the main one, right? It's whatever works the best for the client, that's what we would recommend. And if they shouldn't have been doing ads for the stage that their business was at, we would tell them, we're not the right fit for you. We scale. We don't set up and build. And we didn't do that because we did that for many years, and that was a really tough business to be in. If somebody is advising you at a conference, on a webinar, any of those things, right? What I am saying is that you should just kind of weight the advice and be like, well, they're probably going to tell me that I should because that's the service that they sell. Today, you don't need to worry about that, because when I teach you the ORCA strategy and you understand the difference between strategy, a method, and a platform, that's going to make this very clear. So what should determine platform that you use, or what should determine how you drive traffic and how you generate sales and attention and interest in your business? Well, what I'm going to show you today with the ORCA strategy is that there are basically only 4 strategies. We'll talk about that in just a minute. 4 strategies for driving traffic in your business. This is a very powerful framework. There's only 4 strategies. There's only 4 ways you can do it. And the thing about it is we have to first ask the question, for your specific business, which of these strategies should we be using? Okay. So what determines what you should be doing to drive traffic in your business is, 1, who is your market? So before you can determine how to drive traffic, to first understand your ideal customer profile, ICP, or your customer avatar, whatever you want to call it. I tend to call it an avatar. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You need to know who that is. Okay. Who are we advertising to? It's the first thing we need to ask. Part of that process of researching and identifying who your ideal customer is identifying where they're spending time, the platforms that they're on, that they are getting information from, right? It used to be newspapers. It used to be TV. Now we tend to see specific platforms on the internet like Facebook, Instagram, or in other words, Meta platforms, Alphabet's platforms, Google, YouTube, X, ChatGPT. These are all platforms that are on the internet that people are seeking advice from. It's where they're going to get their information, right? So our ideal customer avatar, where are the places that they are going to get information? And of those 4 or 5 platforms, what is the number 1 platform that they're using? Because if there's a single platform that by far your ideal customer is on more than all the others, that's the platform you should probably be starting with. Now, there's a caveat to that. The second step is, once you understand my market is on this platform, you might have a primary platform and then the secondary platforms that they spend time on. But when you understand that breakdown, the next thing that you have to ask yourself is about the context of what are they doing when they're on that platform, and what are they there for? What is the context of why my ideal customer is on this platform? So let me give you one example. You've got your ideal customer. Their one platform is Facebook. Okay, they're like 40 to 50-year-old market. They're on Facebook, they're in the news feed, they're watching videos, all those different things. They're on the Facebook ad platform, or the Facebook platform. That's their number one. Their number two might be they still are searching Google primarily, and they're looking for things on Google. Now, what I mean by context is when we're looking at context, we're looking at what is the service or product or service that your business is offering to them, okay? Because we have to understand how to present that product or service to them. So if they're on Facebook, for example, and you put an ad in front of them, and it's clear that it's an ad and it's out of the context for the reason that they're there, which is probably like to keep up with friends and family and see what's going on, then the ads on Facebook may not be as successful as they could be for you if you're running ads or if you're posting, right? We're going to talk about more than just ads for sure. But a lot of people need this information because they're like, I think we should do ads. Okay, so that's why I keep referencing ads. But if the context of your product and service is not, let's just say if the context of your product and service is inappropriate and is very outside of the reason that they're spending time on that platform, that may not be the best platform for you to choose. So when we're looking at what should we be doing, we're looking at who is our customer avatar, where are they spending time, what platforms, where are they taking advice from? And when they're on these platforms, what's the context of how they're using them? Okay, that's one of the first things we want to know. And then when it comes to your offer and the products and services that you provide to that customer avatar, if I were to put an ad based on what I know about why they're there, if I were to put an ad about my products and services directly, right? No funnel, nothing, just trying to directly sell my product or service to them on that platform, would it be out of context for them? And they'd be like, no, that's like, why am I seeing this in my feed? I don't want to see that in my feed. It might be like completely inappropriate if you were on Facebook, but very appropriate if you were on Google and they were searching for your solution. Do you understand that? So what this comes down to is customer avatar, where are they spending time? Where are they getting advice from? When it comes to our offer, is it appropriate for us to offer it in the context of why they're on that platform? Okay, so we first understand that. Now, this is going to tell us where our platform, and I have this listed as 3. What we first need to decide, though, is what strategy we're going to use. Strategy is the what. What are we going to do to drive traffic? That's the first question we have to answer when it comes to choosing a strategy. We understood about our market from the market research. We understood about our offers. But when it comes to choosing a strategy, we have to understand our business and where our business is at. And I want this information to be able to be applied to any business, as I mentioned earlier, no matter the size of that business. So the first thing we're identifying now is we're at the level of our business to determine, what am I going to do to drive traffic? And this is really where the ORCA method comes in. So the ORCA, O-R-C-A, stands for outreach, referrals, content, and ads. Pretty much any of the hows of driving traffic fit into one of these bigger picture strategies. Strategy is the highest level, the biggest thing that we do, right? That's the what. And this what is going to help us to decide, based on where our business is at and what we sell and where our customers are spending time and getting their information from, our ideal customer avatar, which of these strategies should we be using to get their attention, okay? So ORCA stands for outreach, referrals, content, and ads. Now, how does the business fit into this? Well, the easiest way to make this assessment is to say, if your business is making like zero to 100,000, okay, that's your top line revenue, then you probably should be starting with outreach, okay? Now, let me break this down a little bit so we understand why I'm making these recommendations. So within the outreach, referrals, content, and ads, we have a few variables. We have a component of effort, scalability, time, and cost. Now, when you're just starting out or you're making less than $100,000 per year, you probably have more time than money, right? Maybe you're not a funded startup, probably not, right? So you're like, okay, I've got a lot of time, okay, but I don't have a lot of money. If a lot of time and you don't have a lot of money, then you probably have to put in more effort. So if you have more time and less money, you've got high time, less money, and that means you probably are going to have to put in the effort. And that means that probably the first thing that you should do is doing some outreach. Okay. So this tells you like, hey, my customer base is on LinkedIn. And so I'm going to do like outreach on LinkedIn. Okay. So platform is LinkedIn, outreach strategy is outreach. And then you're like, okay, well, how do I do outreach on LinkedIn? Or you're like, my customers are, spending the most time in their email. My research showed me that email is the best way to get a hold of them. Reaching out over email, reaching out over WhatsApp, reaching out over Facebook Messenger, reaching out over LinkedIn chat. So you see how this tells you basically for where I'm at with the resources that I have available to me. The effort, the scalability, the time, and the cost. Really, the resources are largely the cost and time. Then that pegs you at, it makes the most sense to do outreach, okay? Because outreach is low cost, but high time. And so it lands you in most cases here in the outreach strategy. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a combination strategy that is by far one of the most leverageable strategies. So even if you are just starting out, you can use this to gain massive leverage. So you're not going to want to miss that at the end of this video. But in order to understand that, you have to understand all these first. So that's why we're going to go through these first. So that's probably what you should be doing if you're early stage. Now, when we look at referrals, we see referrals are like outreach is not super appealing. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, outreach sucks, right? Unless you're like extremely extroverted, you're like, before I can do the work that is why I started my business or provide the products that I wanted to provide or whatever that is, I got to go out and message strangers that may not want to hear from me, right? And there's a strategy to that. Not the most appealing proposition of the way to drive traffic. Again, I'm going to show you how to make it more appealing and more leveraged, but going out and sending DMs to people is probably not what you had in mind. Now, if that's the case, one thing I'm going to tell you is I never promote pitching in DMs. So you've all gotten those types of messages when I say like, hey, you should be doing outreach on LinkedIn. I'm not saying send these long messages with links and try to pitch people in the DMs. I'm not saying that at all. It's not the way it works. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work well. Please don't do that, okay? The method I'm going to show you later, you can leverage outreach and send like 10 messages per day and easily break 6 figures, depending on what you're selling. Now, you may be looking at this and you're like, well, hey, if I look at referrals, right, as the strategy, these things follow me. If I look at referrals from the strategy, that's a little bit more appealing, right? Because the time is low, the effort is low, and the cost is low. Here's the problem. It's 2 problems. One, the scalability is low, okay? Not everybody who you do business with is going to refer business to you or be in a position to. So the scalability in this instance, when you use referrals by themselves, is pretty unpredictable. It's not as scalable as some of the other things. Like with outreach, you can send a certain amount every day, and you can increase that if it's working. If you find something that's working, a message that's working on the platform that you chose, you can scale that up, right? And so the problem here with referrals by themselves, why wouldn't we start with that? Well, I told you, like, even if you're starting at 0, so if you're starting at 0 and you've got nothing under your belt yet, you're not going to be able to get referrals unless you use the leverage strategy that I'm going to share with you in just a couple minutes. But that makes sense. So the two problems are, first, in order to get referrals, you typically have to have clients, except for with this leverage strategy I'm going to show you. And two, it's going to produce kind of a feast or famine if you're completely dependent on referrals in the business. Now, you did outreach to get some of your first clients, and then you start to put in place a process to get referrals. So you're working with these simultaneously, but to do the outreach to get the first client. The next thing is typically content. So we look at content, we say, okay, we've done some outreach, we've got some business. From that business, we've gotten some referrals. We now have a little bit more money. We're maybe at or breaking $100,000 per year. We see some value that we can provide in the form of content that is basically, we can use it in our sales process. We can, start to basically preemptively answer frequently asked questions that we're getting, all these different things, right? I'm actually getting paid for what I do. And we've got a little bit more money and we've got some business coming in. Maybe it's time to do content. Now, here's the thing about content. Content is high cost. People are like, oh, content is free. It's really not. It's really not free. Like, just in posting tools and now GPT and all these different things that you're going to use, you're not be looking at, like, it's not super expensive, right? But let's say you're doing video, right? You've got video tools, you've got research tools, you've got editing tools, you've got creative tools to make thumbnails or things like that, right? The costs add up a lot more than people think. And I want you to build a traffic system that can work no matter what stage you're at in business, okay? So I'm trying to build this not only to make it so that you can make money quickly and scale, but also so that you can continue to do that for a long time. So content is not free. There is more cost to it. There's definitely more cost than outreach and referrals, okay? So if you're at that 100K plus, I usually see content becoming a lot more appropriate, because that way, like, the owner has some resources to pay themselves and to pay some other people and to pay for some tools, but it's not hard and fast. Like, if you're making money and you've got a system to generate business predictably with outreach and referrals, then it may be time to start adding in some content, especially if a little bit more of a complex sales process or a little bit more competition. Now it might be the time to start adding in content. So now you move over and you've added content into your system. Why? Because it has a higher cost, it has a higher effort, which means you're going to invest more time. But the benefit is it's really scalable, right? Like, we've seen over the past few years, people can really scale the hell out of content, right? So it's a great thing to add in, and it can position your company and your brand better if you choose to use it as a strategy at the right time in your business, when you have a little bit of time and money and kind of have that balance between the two, but you also have something working. When you have content, it makes getting results with your outreach easier, which gets you more clients, which gets you more referrals, which gets you more questions that people have and need answered and need help with before they buy, which makes it easier to create more content, right? And this content starts to make it so that you've got this little flywheel in the business and helps the company to grow. Now, once you have that, you're going to start to be in a situation where you now start to have more money over here than you have time. You start to have this shift where in the business, you're like, hey, I've actually got more money than I have time. This is where you start looking at, what are the messages that I've sent? What questions do people have? Why do they refer? And this is where it may become time to add in the ad strategy, the advertising. The reason that it's best to go this way, a lot of people are like, well, I just want to have the ads running so I can focus on the other stuff. But the problem is, if you start with ads, the great thing about ads, let's look at the benefits of ads first and why they're desirable and why you may be like, I'm not at the 100K yet, I'm just starting, but I want to start with ads. I'm going to take all this money I got saved, I'm going to put it into ads. This is why they're desirable, right? Once they're working, they don't take a lot of time. And this comes from somebody who managed hundreds of advertising accounts, thousands of ads at a time. had a really good way to streamline that process. They don't take that much time. Once they're working, you can scale pretty easily. So not a lot of time, super high scalability, right? That's probably the number one reason that we want to do ads. I remember talking to business owners like, what's your budget? How much are you going to spend? If they were not spending on ads yet, it's like, what's your budget? How much do you want to spend? The response was always like, well, if it's working, I'll spend an infinite amount. It's like, that doesn't answer my question, right? But it's that desirability of like, I don't want to spend the time. I want something that's crazy scalable. I want something that takes less effort, and I'm willing to invest in doing it. The cost on ads is going to be very, very high, right? So here's the thing. If you have outreach, you're getting referrals because you've got a great offer, you're doing some content, the honest answer is like, the platforms work, right? They make billions of dollars for a reason. And so do they work? Yeah, they work. If you do them at the right time and use them the right way, it's not a question of will they work, it's will they work for my customer to sell the thing that I sell? Like, is my customer looking for this thing on that platform like we talked about earlier, right? Which you already know. And if it's appropriate to advertise to them there and the context is right, then yeah, they probably will work. If your business is at the stage that you're ready for ads, especially if you skip outreach, referrals, and content and you try to go right to ads, it's going to cost you exponentially more to get those ads working. No lie, okay? From somebody who sold ads, okay? It's going to cost you, if you're like, I want to make ads work, plan on this actually not being low time. You're going to be spending a lot of money, a lot of effort, high time. You see how you kind of like had to actually do the same thing to be able to make the ads work. Whereas when you follow this process based on where you're at, like you already be doing outreach, you may be getting referrals because of other things that you did. So it's where you're at in the business. But the thing about ads is if outreach and or referrals and or content already, the thing you have to understand about ads is they work best when they are seen as an amplifier, okay? Ads especially work when you view them as a tool that amplifies what's already working. And that's a very, very important distinction, okay? So ads are an amplifier. Why can I say that? If you're doing these things, if you're doing outreach, you're doing referrals, you're doing content, you're talking to the market, you have customers, you are solving their problems, you're going to be able to write ads that communicate that. You're going to be able to take pieces of content that convert sales or leads really well, and you're going to be able to adapt that to the ad platform that you're going to use. And if it works in these contexts, it will probably also work in the context of paying for advertising. Ads are an amplifier. All these other things, you're basically earning impressions with time and effort. You're putting your energy in to get those impressions. However, when it comes to ads, the difference is you've now made a shift to where instead of putting in your effort and improving your content and doing more outreach and putting in place an improved system to consistently generate referrals from your customers, ads are simply a shift where you go, okay, this is the things that work. Instead of spending that time and effort, it's an amplifier. In its most basic sense, all advertising platforms are paying for impressions. So the proper way to see ads is as a tool that amplifies what's already working in one or all of these different strategies. So, in recap here, the ORCA strategy, outreach, referrals, content, ads, with this ideal path where most people are going to take this is very much dependent on where your business is at. Do I have more time than I have money? If so, we want to be focusing over here. When you start to get the balance of I've got a little bit of time and I've got a little bit of money, We want to start focusing on adding in content. And then when that shift or that pivot to where you're like, hey, I've got more money than I've got time, you're going to start amplifying what's already working with ads. This path, this strategy, what you do based on your market and where your business is at, is by far the most effective method to drive traffic, okay? Again, whether you're starting at zero or you're spending or making $100,000 a day and beyond, this is the path to do that. And it's scalable. Now, be looking at these things, you might be like, well, referrals are not scalable. Outreach is not scalable. You promised me, Mitch, you promised me a method that I could use that would basically throw gas on the fire, okay? What I'll tell you about this combo strategy is, you, believe it or not, if you did just the strategy that I'm about to show you, you could build $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, even $1 billion business off of just this one strategy by combining two of the strategies. And you could do this and never have to do content. Now, you may want to add content in because it would make it better, but you could do this and never run ads. And it would be, you could build pretty much any size business that you want, provided that the market's there, the offer's there, right? The fundamentals of the business have to be there. The demand has to be there. But what I'm saying is, this weird thing happens when you combine a modified outreach strategy with a modified referral strategy. And you can use the modified combo of these two things, outreach and referrals. And when you do it this way, all of a sudden, this combo strategy that's a little bit modified becomes incredibly scalable, sometimes even more scalable than the path that I just showed you with ads. This strategy is also responsible for landing me my largest clients in my agency. And when I moved out of the agency and moved into business acquisition, I would say probably 90% of the businesses that I acquired and or invested in, if not more, if not like 95%, came from what I'm about to show you. So here's how it works. You might be thinking, do I just send more outreach and then get more referrals? So we talked about your customer avatar, excuse me. You've got your customer, and this is your ideal customer, okay? Now, let me actually move them out of the way. Give me 1 second. So we'll put them right here. And your customer is on this journey. When this customer, to understand that when they are in this phase of needing to work with your business, your offers, okay, your business and your offers, what you sell, okay? This is a stage of their journey. And almost all customer avatars, almost all businesses have the opportunity to do what I'm about to show you. This customer avatar is encountering other businesses that they are buying other products and services from, okay? I mentioned earlier, like, hey, you go to a conference and that conference has like trade booths, right? Why? Well, because the conference is selling a different thing than you're selling. But the people who are interested in the thing that are interested in the conference, because of what it's about and what it does, they're also interested in what you sell, right? Which is why I look at it and be like, I'd love to get in front of this group and sell my services. But if you think about this, like when this really clicked for me, just how powerful and how flexible this was, I'll tell you what it was. My dad had a home inspection business. That was what he did for 35 years. That was his main business. They used only the strategy that I'm about to show you. And they built the largest inspection company in their area just using this strategy, okay? What it is when you identify your customer avatar, you identify other companies that they're buying products and services from, other offers from, that are not competing with your offers, your products and services. Now, ideally, if you can find other companies that they're buying products and services from, then that they are working with those companies before working with your company. So I'll use my dad's company as an example, right? Before they looked for a home inspector and needed a home inspector, they were looking at houses with a realtor. And so for my dad's company, the realtor was the person who they were working with before needing a home inspection. And so the person that they're working with is happening in the stream of their journey, right? It's happening before they would need a home inspector, because before they can do a home inspection, they have to have a house that they're putting in an offer to do the inspection on. And the realtor is somebody that is not selling home inspection services. So their services are complementary to the home inspection. In fact, if they get a home inspection, not only are the services happening before on the stream of time, not only are they happening before, but the realtor service is actually improved by working with a home inspector who offers good services. So the way I always think about this is getting into a mindset of like, when you go to Amazon, we see this, right? So it's like you go to Amazon, you buy a book. It's like people who bought this book also bought this book. That's like, the product is a book. It's actually like a competing service or competing offer for your attention, right? However, people who buy books, they're not only going to read one book, they're going to probably read two. So it's like, hey, if you're buying this book about how to do content marketing, also like a book about how to do ads, right? The books complement each other. And so this is the way we want to kind of think, is like, people who bought this also bought this. The best combination is if you can find a person or a company who is interacting with your ideal customer avatar before they would need your services, okay? So if we understand that concept, we're looking for the customer avatar. What are they doing? What do they need before they would need your products and services? Who is the person that's offering that? Okay? Who is the person or company? So even if it's a company, a person is always going to be representing that. If it's like a rep for the sales rep for that company, right? It's a person. Okay? Who is the person who they're interacting with before? And again, ideally, if this customer buys their services are actually going to work better if they were to also use your services. That's like the trifecta. If you understand that concept, that's the foundation, okay? To make this work, you have to understand the market, the customer, and you have to understand your offer very well, and you have to understand the other solutions that they're using and how your offer fits in with them. So you're going to be spending more time getting to know who the market is, what your offer is, making it more clear, and understanding the other companies that are selling that are their services and products and offers are improved by your offer. This is the hard part of this. But once we've identified those variables and who this person is, it's a type of person, it's like a title or a type of person or a type of company. Once we've identified that, and I'm going to tell you how I use this to grow my agency, once you identify that person, who that is, instead of looking at this and saying, hey, I'm going to do outreach to get the customer, right? And then when I get the customer, I'm going to provide them a great experience and I'm going to get referrals. What you're doing is you're flipping this, because what you understand is this person right here can get you 10 customers or 100 customers or 1,000 customers and so on and so forth, if you have a relationship with them. So instead of saying, I'm going to go out one-to-one and, do outreach, send messages, whatever that is, to build relationships with my customer and try to sell them, get them on the phone, whatever that's like, sell them, and then from them get referrals. Maybe they refer 1 or 2 people. Now what you're saying is you're flipping this. You're saying, I'm going to find the type of people that they're interacting with first that can bring me 10, 100, 1,000 of my ideal customers because they're interacting with them before and their offer is improved and complemented by mine. My offer is not competing with theirs. So it's actually in this person's best interest to form a relationship with you and refer business to you. So you see how that works? Now you're doing outreach to these people to find these people, and you're building a relationship with them. Maybe even giving them a sample of your service, giving them some of your services free, demoing your service, helping them to see that by what you do and what you offer, their customer's experience is going to be even better when they use theirs, because there's some risk to referring somebody that you haven't personally used their service. There's a lot to this method. I could talk about this method all day, but doing this, right, you now have flipped it. So we've taken outreach, which is typically 1-to-1, and referrals, which you typically need, which typically are not scalable and making them unpredictable. And you flipped it and you said, I'm going to do outreach to these leverage referral partners, build a relationship with them, and then I'm going to make it so that they are giving me multiple referrals. So it's a 1-to-1 strategy, right? The outreach is 1-to-1, but really it's a outreach that's 1-to-many, okay? Because once you've got this relationship established and you've helped them and you've built a relationship, which does take some time, and you've shown them how their offer, their services, what they sell is improved by them also referring this person to you, or they say, hey, after you use our services, here's the thing that you should do, and they refer them to you, that's where the leverage comes in. And because it's a referral, you close your sales more easily because it's somebody that they've already done business with and trust. You close the sales more easily. There's less resistance. The cost is still low. The scalability is crazy high. And you're actually amplifying the referral process. This is really powerful. So I'll tell you 2 ways that I did this when I was running my agency, and then we'll kind of wrap up this video. Jump on a call with one of my team members and have them break this down for you and help you with this. By all means, please do that, because this could be really, really powerful. What I did in my agency, when I first started my agency years and years ago, had no experience. I was doing the full stack, right? I was doing website design, website, development. We were doing stuff in Infusionsoft, and we were doing, it was we were doing the full stack. We were doing everything. As Facebook started offering ads, previous to that, we were doing AdWords. We were doing search-based ads. We were doing content. I was just spread so thin, and I was really good at a lot, but I wasn't great at any one thing. We were pretty great at ads. And when Facebook started to really come on the scene as somebody that was going to start offering ads and be a competitive advertiser, they were like, hey, we keep hearing about this targeting stuff and what you can do with Facebook, and do you know how to do Facebook ads? And I had been testing them since they came out. So I was like, yeah, I know how to do them. And so they're like, can we add on Facebook ads, right? Now, at a certain point, this got so popular that what I realized is if I go to people who have websites and even people who are doing AdWords, they want to be doing Facebook ads. What I realized is if a website development company came to my site and they saw, hey, this guy offers these Facebook ads that we've been hearing so much about, but he also offers websites, so it's a risk to refer business to him because what if he takes our business and they want to just bundle it? I made this decision to say, I'm going to remove every service except for advertising as a service, paid advertising as a service. And that was a huge risk because I cut a bunch of our business by doing that. Now, I didn't just cut it and throw it away. I was like, hey, just so you guys know, we're not going to be offering this anymore. we're only going to offer ads. We're still going to grandfather you guys in, but as like, if you stop our service, like we're not going to be able to reinstate that. We're not offering the service anymore. So I didn't just like cut all my income, but I was like, we're not going to advertise for websites. We're not going to do stuff with automation and infusion software. What this allowed me to do is it allowed me to go out to web development agencies and build relationships with web developers. Why? Well, this works because when I'm not offering a competing service and they have all of their customers coming to them being like, hey, you just built this great site for us. This is amazing. But how do we get people there, right? We want people to see it, right? What is the best compliment that a web developer can have? Wow, we got this new site and it's working so well. Why? Because we're getting a bunch of traffic. We're getting, more business that is seeing the site. So web developers want traffic because it makes the site that they just built, that's beautiful and functional and all these great things of why it needed to be built in the first place, it made it work. And so a web developer, that's what they do. They, especially at the time, they did not want to be messing with ads. And if they did, they're like, yeah, we're offering it because everybody's asking about it, but they're not getting any results. We're spending like $100 a month. It's driving some traffic and we can tell them we're doing ads. So I'd take these web developers out to lunch and that was the story every time. And I would say, hey, here's the thing. To make this work, somebody's got to invest way more. Okay, they got to invest more. This is how we determine what their budget should be and what you can expect for each amount of budget. So I'd kind of tell them, hey, this is actually how it works. Was I worried that they were going to take that and do it themselves? I mean, they could have, but it wasn't something I was worried about. If in most cases, 9 times out of 10, if they're like, man, this guy really knows this stuff about ads and this is all they do is ads, and they're not going to take our website business, they'd be like, hey, what does it look like if we just refer our clients to you? And I would tell them something like, remember, I'm trying to improve their service. I'm like, hey, why don't you just offer a complimentary paid ad analysis with every website? And we can put on like $1,000 value. And what that'll be is like, once the website is done, we'll identify opportunities of how they can drive traffic to that site and actually generate leads and sales from it. And we'll give them that as what basically a bonus thing that you can offer with the website to make it so that you can close the website deal instead of one of your competitors. You can use this as an offer or a offer improvement, so it makes your services better. And if they want to work with us and that's something that they can afford, then they will work with our agency. So that was the first way that I used this, and that quickly in the agency, I took that risk, quickly got me past like $200,000 per year in the early years of my agency, okay? And then the other thing that I did was in the agency, in the evolution of my agency, I started to see a breakdown where like 20% of our clients were getting 80% of the results. And as a result of that, they were also getting more of my attention personally because these clients were spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars per month. These were our star clients. These were the ones that were spending the most money and getting the best results. What we uncovered was how to profitably scale paid advertising with predictability down to the dollar in the day. So we could tell them, hey, we're going to scale. This is how much we can scale at while remaining profitable. And we're going to basically tell you when you're going to see the increase in your business. Pretty good proposition. So good that at that point, I did this again, but I now started to say, hey, we don't set up ads for people. Okay, so we really stopped working with the web developers. So we don't set up ads for people. What we do is we scale. And so what that means is you already have something working, right? And maybe you're spending $10,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month. Those are the most common. But every time you try to increase spend that's of something that's working, that's either break even or profitable, it loses money or becomes, in other words, unprofitable, right? Or something that was profitable starts breaking even, okay? This is something that a lot of businesses were, a lot of companies, they were in these positions, but their agency didn't know how to solve it. So because of what we did, we could take somebody from tens of thousands per month in spend where they couldn't be profitable. Anytime they try to scale, they're like, we're hitting a ceiling. We can't scale past $20,000 a month or $25,000 a month. And that's all we want to do. Okay. What I did is I positioned it. So I said, hey, all we do is scale. What that means is like, we take what's already working and we show you how to scale it profitably. And here's the thing that's crazy about that. I decided to go to agencies, other ad agencies that were basically in the position I was in before, but they hadn't cracked the code on scale and they couldn't scale profitably. What this meant is that if the agency was working with this company and they couldn't scale, they hit that ceiling and the company is happy, month one after they are at this ceiling, month one, they're happy. Month two, they're happy. Month three, they start to become unhappy. Month four, they're looking for somebody else that can help them scale. And the agency was going to lose that client anyway. Here's the crazy thing. What I realized is that I could say these agencies are charging $1,000 per month for managing this, or $2,000 per month. But we can take somebody who's spending, and this is not an exaggeration, this is a real life example. I took somebody who was profitably spending $15,000 per month, but anytime they'd go over to 20, they'd become unprofitable. They'd have to back it off, and then it would take time to balance back out. $15,000 a month to $100,000 per month in 90 days, profitably, without losing money, profitably. Okay. That is something that we could do that the other agency couldn't do. And if they kept failing, they're going to lose the client. No matter what, they'd lose the client at some point. Because of the fact that we were taking these companies spending tens of thousands and making it so they could profitably spend hundreds of thousands, we could charge more. So that the amount that we could give as a referral commission to the agency on an ongoing basis was equal to or more than what they would make if they had kept the client. So guess what? They stopped doing the work. They refer the business to me. Of course, I'm charging more as I'm spending more, and they're basically making a little bit less, the same or more as what they were making with the client. I had one guy, ended up becoming one of my referral sources, basically just stopped running the agency that he had. He would take on a few clients here and there, but he got to a point where he was just like getting them set up and charging a fee and referring them to us. Okay, one of our referral sources. So my point is, if you're creative and you start to think this way and see this type of opportunity, you can understand that this becomes incredibly leveraged. And what you're doing, again, the strategy here is you're doing outreach to this referral, this type of individual that you've identified as a good referral partner, building the relationship with them. You're improving their service if possible, and you're giving, and like, if you can't improve their service, like we couldn't when I switched to the agencies, you in that case can give a referral commission. When I was doing it with the web developers, I offered them a referral commission. Most people were like, no, it's fine. Well, we don't even need it. They were happy. So if you don't have that component where their business is going to be improved or their services are going to be improved by them working with you next, then that's where you need to say, hey, we're going to give a referral commission. Okay. But that is the structure. That's what's leverageable. I had people refer business, and because of how this worked, I had people refer business that was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. I have a friend of mine who his average customer value using this strategy, okay, he was selling to hospitals. So keep that in mind. Customer had the money to do it. Small market, high average customer value, so it was worth it. His average customer value was a $1.5 million per year retainer. How did he get his business? With this strategy. So what we covered today is how to choose the right traffic strategy for where your business is at, identifying those strategies, outreach, referrals, content, and ads, and how to move through and continue to scale as you go. And if you really, really want to gain massive leverage you can use the combination strategy with the strategic referral partners, where you do outreach to find your strategic referral partners, and then from building the relationship with them, they give you referrals. And if you want to just like amp that up like crazy, become the leader in your market, then you can add on content and ads, and the sky's the limit, right? So hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I just wanted to throw it all out there, provide you a ton of value. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, you want to see more videos like this one, I'd love to have you click that subscribe button and join us each time I publish videos. So if you like this video, you want to see more like it, others, click that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.